How often do you exercise? How often do you eat your vegetables? How many squares of toilet paper does it take to get the job done? All good questions that people like to ask to find out how well you're taking care of yourself. But what they should be asking is how often do you play your video games, and especially the older ones. Now, right away, some of you might be thinking, you kidding me? You think I get to choose how often I play games? I don't get to play games as much as I'd like to, so the better question to ask would be, how often can I play my games? For a lot of us, free time comes at an absolute premium, so when you do have that free time, you think, oh my goodness, this is precious free time that I need to dedicate to playing video games if I can. But what if you like other things too? Ah, crap, you mean there's other things besides video games that are enjoyable to do during your free time? Now we really don't have enough free time. So how often you play video games basically comes down to a couple of things. How much free time do you have, and what percentage of that free time do you dedicate to playing video games as opposed to the other things that you enjoy doing? But hold on a second, if you don't have as much free time as you'd like to, isn't there a way you could create more free time? Well, there are some ways, and one of the most popular ways is, dare I say it, staying up past your bedtime? Well, your secret is safe with me. Sometimes you may go through a really hectic, busy day and you get to the end of it and you think, wait a second, that whole having free time part of the day never happened. Well, it's time to make it happen by staying up a little later than maybe you would otherwise. And this time of day, or night if you will, can be an absolutely magical time. It's a time that I like to call the time when the world stops. And for those who have kids, it can be especially appreciated because your kids are finally in bed, your phone isn't blowing up, you're not answering emails or whatever it is you have to do during the day, and you can just sit there without a care in the world. It's just you and that video game, finally. Although, sometimes even when the world has stopped, it actually hasn't. Quick little story for you. So, I've got this friend who plays video games, the good sir, and he's got two younger boys, and he really wants to play the remake of Resident Evil 2, but he doesn't want to play it during the daytime when his boys are around because he just feels they're not old enough for it yet. So what does he do? He waits until the time when the world stops. So one night he's got it all ready to go, and not 3 minutes into playing, all of a sudden he hears the creakety squeakety of his stairs as his youngest son creaks and squeaks his way down the steps, and he thinks, oh, looks like it's daddy time now, and Resident Evil 2 is just gonna have to wait. Now, one thing I would like to point out is that the title of this video is how often do you play video games, not necessarily how long do you play them for. So, in theory, you could play games every single day, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes, and say, yeah, I play games every day. Something that can help is to have a plan for where those opportunities are going to come from, something you can depend on. I know some people will even go to such drastic measures as to lie about having something like IBS. Yeah, that'll score you at least a half an hour in the bathroom, and then it's game time, baby. Alright, but so how do retro games fit into all of this? Well, because of retro games' quick pick up and play nature, you fire it up, and within seconds you are playing that game. So this, in theory, should create more potential opportunities to play. I swear, one time I was playing a more modern game, and at the time I started it up, there was nothing going on. I didn't really need to be anywhere or go anywhere. So I'm like, all right, I can play this for a little while and then get on with my day. So I started up, and by the time everything loads and there was some update and, you know, whatever else it was that it needed, by the time I finally booted up the game, something came up. It was time for me to go. And yeah, did I have less time than I thought I did? Sure, but point is, I could have been on stage 3 of Gunstar Heroes already by that point. Point being, in this way, retro games can offer you more potential opportunities to play if you want to. Because that's the thing, you may not want to play video games every single time you have a chance, especially if you're somebody who's like, forget all this sneaking around at night and bunkering yourself into the bathroom. I can play for hours a day in broad daylight if I want to. I know some people who intentionally try not to overdo it when it comes to playing games because in a way it can sort of ruin the novelty of it. So what do? Well, they maybe take a couple days off, maybe a week, couple weeks, a month. I don't know, it's up to you. And then it makes it all the sweeter when you do finally come back to those games and play them, giving them a nice fresh feel. I can personally say that this has worked out great for me the handful of times I've tried it, and it just feels so good to come back to those games after it's been a while. It's kind of like those scenes in movies where two people who love each other see each other from afar for the first time in a long time, and then in slow motion they run towards each other. It's kind of like that, except that one of the people is a Sega Genesis. Or maybe you just think, screw that, I need video games every single day, or else it just kind of feels like the day isn't right without them. I also think that what type of game you're playing will have a lot to do with this, whether it's retro or modern. If it's a game where you're picking up where you last left off, well, maybe you can't take too many days in between play sessions or else you're going to come back and be like, what the heck was I even doing? You just need that continuity of sort of playing more or less every day, even if it's for just a bit, so that you can keep that flow and rhythm going of playing through the game. Not to mention, you can get really into certain games that you're enjoying. When I was playing through Super Metroid, you can bet that every time I had a chance to play, I was playing this game until I finished it. Alright, but what about all the other things besides actually playing these older games that we do? You know, collecting, research, discovery, all of that. Well, you're making the decision to do those things because they're enjoyable, but you could be playing your games instead. Now, what type of mix you want to do of those things is up to you. I'm just saying it's something to be aware of. You may come to find that you like actually playing your games more than those other things, and so you kind of shift the ratio of how you're doing all of that. But if you're enjoying doing all of those other things, then by all means keep doing them. I mean, heck, I once spent almost an entire afternoon just looking up all the different games that have bananas in them, and I don't regret a single minute of it. Alright, but before I wrap things up, I got a message for the kids. Now, people will tell you this is an important time of your life, a time to discover who you really are, what you want to be in life. Yeah, sure, that's all great, but also a time where you have a little bit of extra free time to play these older video games. Live your life, sure, but try to squeeze them in there because it's probably the most free time you'll ever have. But that should just about do it. The question for this video is another one of those obvious ones. How often do you play your games? I would love to know. And I'm kind of curious how that's all going to break down amongst everybody. So be sure to leave those answers along with anything else you might have to say, and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the retro bird, yeah, and he's talking about video games.